And I will tell you that I've been texting back and forth with Mark Quinn, who is harassing me because I refuse to go on his podcast. So
That makes sense.
Oh my God.
no, I told him I only went on podcasts with people with integrity. But, yeah, no. Full disclosure, I love Quinn. I'd do anything for Quinn other than go on his podcast.
Yeah. Well, we do as well, but that won't stop Quinn from catching a few strays on this podcast, I'm sure.
Welcome to Mike It Up with GOODBED.com's Jeff Cassidy.
So when that's the case, it becomes harder just psychologically to make a change.
And Mike Magnuson.
If you're doing those things, you can be competitive long term.
Just when you thought these number-crunching data lovers couldn't get any nerdier, they started a podcast.
And I know this is pretty controversial, but this is why we're having a podcast, right?
But if you want to be smart about how the mattress shopping journey is changing and what retailers and manufacturers should be doing about it, well then, man, have you ever found your people? Because right now, it's time to mic it up.
Well, our guest today is Karl Glassman, who is the chairman and CEO of Leggett Platt. Leggett Platt has been around since, I believe, 1883. It is an industry stalwart. It is the largest component supplier to the entire bedding industry. They are also, I believe, the largest contract manufacturer to the bedding industry, or certainly one of them. And they have incredible visibility into the entire value chain, everything from, pulling the wire that ultimately becomes springs to, in fact, even steel, like how raw, well, I'll let Karl answer that, but they have great visibility across the entire value chain of the mattress industry. And Karl has been in many roles at Leggett Platt over his many decade career, and has just an incredible perspective, and more than any of that, he's one of the most well-respected and highly regarded individuals in the industry. There's no question, Karl, that your reputation and specifically your reputation for integrity in all of your business dealings precedes you with flying colors. So we're delighted to have Karl here as our guest today. And Karl, I'll throw it to you just to say, did I miss anything in your background? I'm sure I did, but
No, Mike, I appreciate that. It was very kind of you. My parents would be proud, and I'm humbled. So, thank you. The industry is very important to both me personally and certainly my family that's preceded me. Worked in the industry. I'm fifth generation in the bedding industry, so it's in my DNA, and it's important to us, and it's important to the company. And I appreciate you and Jeff facilitating this and giving us an opportunity to have our voices heard. So thank you very much. Yeah, and Mike, I've got you and I have interacted just briefly on the periphery a couple times, but Mike, what you and Jeff do for the industry, I think is really, really important. So thank you for asking us to be involved in this, but more importantly, what you do, holding people accountable, saying that the consumer clearly deserves the benefit of their bargain. And that's just kind of a human need. And people discount mattresses, but they're important. I mean, it's an intimate purchase. And so thank you for what you guys have done.
Well, no, thank you for
very
saying
much.
that. That means a lot coming from you, especially.
I will tell you that I've been texting back and forth with Mark Quinn, who is harassing me because I refuse to go on his podcast. So
It's so funny because before coming on here,
That makes sense.
Yeah, I Googled to see if you had been on Dos Marcos, and it didn't come up. So
no, I told him I only went on podcasts with people with integrity. But,
oh my gosh, you just gave us the greatest gift ever.
Well, because Quinn and Kinsley, they were urging us at one point to start a podcast, and at the time they were bragging about how they were the greatest mattress podcast in the galaxy. It became a running thing. So this will really be like a nice bit of one-upsmanship for us, a little feather in our cap for that little long running battle.
Yeah,
But
no. Full disclosure, I love Quinn. I'd do anything for Quinn other than go on his podcast.
yeah, right. Well, we do as well, but that won't stop Quinn from catching a few strays on this podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We asked him for a story about you.
Uh-oh.
Said, hey, any kind of funny story, and he said, ask him about all the times that he came into my office complaining about the not getting enough press coverage and photos of him in Furniture Today. Wink, wink, right?
Well, I'm going to tell you a Quinn story. So at the beginning of a calendar year, Perry Davis and I developed a pool and made a bet as to who was going to be in Furniture Today more frequently that calendar year, Quinn or Borgini. And we kept a running total, and I finally had to call Dave Perry to get Quinn in that last photo, so I won. And and it's not till this minute that I've admitted that to Perry Davis. But anyway, and it was
Perry, if you're
neck and neck.
listening, you may need to reclaim those winnings.
It was neck and neck. I promise you. Where there's a camera, there's a Quinn.
No doubt about it. I've seen a couple speeches you've done about Mark. One where you had a great line about the most dangerous place to be is between Mark Quinn and a microphone, and then you did an awesome bit
At the
your
Lifetime Achievement Award.
The Lifetime Achievement Award at the Furniture Today betting conference, and
That was epic.
And you opened it with that phone call, that fake phone call, which I was like live texting with Mark. I was like, you won't believe the amazing stuff that's happening right now. That was brilliant. That was brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. I'll tell you a
recreate
funny
it.
one about that. After I got off the stage, I think it was Jim Nation came up to me with a very straight face and said, "I had no idea you were funny." All these years, 40 years, I didn't think you had a sense of humor. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was brilliant, and
Thank you.
and Mark is a great sport. He's always a great sport, and you know what? And in all seriousness, we both are big fans of Mark's. And you gave some great remarks at one point talking about a quote Mark had about service. That was really cool. That was an amazing testimony that you gave on his behalf. So all the jokes aside, your friendship and respect for him obviously always comes through in the end. So. And likewise to him, we tried to prod some good, juicy stories that we could bring up on this podcast, and that was the best one we got. And then we got a lot of really complimentary things that he said about you as well. So,
I think the world of him. I mean, it is a bit of mutual admiration. I'd do anything for the guy. He's just a highly ethical, really good person, and he made Leggett a better company. He really facilitated us looking at the market differently, and we leaned into marketing. I will say he taught us marketing, and Quinn lives at Leggett Platt every day. I think we've always been customer sensitive, but he kind of took it to the next level. He took it to the end consumer and really tried to get us to better understand that we had a next layer of responsibility, which really is the subject of this conversation today.
It is, and the work that you did with Leggett. I mean, let's get into that, because I think the work that you did that precipitated this conversation is so timely in this regard as well. So, just for the listeners' benefit, your recent testing of Amazon mattresses, it revealed widespread failures of basic flammability testing. So, I'm curious, for starters, what motivated you guys to do this research, and also how were these particular models chosen?
Yeah, it actually, the flammability issue isn't where we were headed. It was a durability question. So what we did is we identified a series of mattresses that we spent some time on Amazon, and most of them admittedly are sold by third parties. So they're third party sellers posting their products on Amazon. So we took the products that had the highest star rating, that looked like, it's very difficult to do an assessment of volume, but we were trying to, through a third party, try to find out not only which the mattresses that had the highest star ratings, but also had the highest volume associated with them.
Yeah, the
And
number of reviews.
yeah, exactly. So we brought them in to do durability analysis, and once we started that, we it became very apparent that there was no compliance to any of the U.S. flammability laws. Said differently, there were not socks below covers. The durability wasn't the same. So we're a certified burn lab. So we burned the mattresses ourselves and thought, my goodness, I mean, the failure rate is so high that we need we don't want our own credibility to be questioned. So we sent them out to a CPS C 1633 certified lab, which is Elements Lab in Minneapolis. And they burned the same mattresses. So we actually bought two sets, and they found the exact same failure rate that we did. But it really wasn't a flammability assessment, it was a durability assessment initially. We're also concerned about the chemical composition of what these mattresses contain. You know, that the foam requirements are different. The foam certifications are rigorous in the U.S. So there's some carcinogens that used to be in foam pouring in the United States that are now prohibited by law, but are very common in some of the Asian markets. So we were trying to do that assessment as well. But the flammability issue was the one that really stuck out because of the consumer exposure to that.
Where do those other assessments or those other initiatives stand? Are those still progressing, like assessing durability, assessing chemical content, and so
The
forth?
durability of the mattresses certainly aren't up to U.S. standards. That is more subjective. That's part of the problem with mattress durability is it's a subjective measure, where at least with the 1633, it's a very systematic, regulated processes. So we could
It's binary. Yeah.
exactly. We could hang our hat on that. We continue to be concerned with the chemical composition that we're finding in these mattresses, but this issue really is about flammability. And it's interesting, Mark, that Mike, I'm sorry, I had Quinn on my mind. That,
That's a real problem.
He lives in my brain, regardless. But anyway, he'll be proud. But he always told me he was unforgettable. But the issue with this whole subject is when we did analysis, the consumer generally knows what they're buying. So these mattresses on average had a retail of $233 at Queen, well below the U.S. average. What we found is the consumer knows that they're buying a mattress that isn't as durable, and they have an expectation of a shorter lifespan than they would of a U.S. compliant mattress that they feel has some brand integrity behind it. So, I can't blame the consumer as much as the element that the consumer doesn't know, and that's the flammability exposure. They don't know that what's in their bedroom or in their child's bedroom is a highly flammable product. The 1633 flammability test is a 30-minute test where the product has to be exposed to an open end. It's a T-shaped burner, and it flames coming out of both sides, and you've got to withstand that for 30 minutes. And these mattresses were fully engulfed in some cases in 2 minutes. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible how highly flammable they are, and they can contribute to flashover, which you both have seen those videos. That's about as scary. I mean, you just can't get out of a room where there's.
I've seen it in
Right.
person. Yeah, luckily it was in a burn test, but I've seen it in person, a mattress that failed the open flame test. And it is frightening how fast and how furiously those
Absolutely.
flames light up. And it is an intense heat.
And that's what the consumer doesn't know. That's why
Yeah.
we've taken this position. We notified the CPSC in July of last year. We notified Amazon. Amazon was non-responsive. CPSC said thanks for the information. They did do a recall of 2 of the mattresses, but kind of under-publicized. Didn't do a whole lot about it, and it's been 15 months, and many of these, some of these mattresses, there were 24 mattresses burned. You do 3 burns, so there are 8 SKUs, let's call them. 7 out of 8 didn't pass. I mean, 85%
Right.
failed. But
Yeah, that's
5
horrific.
Well, 5 of those 8 failed all 3 tests. So I
Wow.
mean, this isn't on the margin.
Not even close, in other
Right.
words.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, this is egregious.
Yeah. Well, what should consumers take from that egregiousness? Like, what should be their kind of conclusion in your mind?
And related to that, for the people who say, well, what are the chances that there's going to be fire on my mattress? How do you respond to that?
Boy, I have, my wife and I have 3 children. We have 12 grandkids. Kids play with matches. Kids play with candles. I don't care how well you supervise them. Bic lighters are everywhere. I mean, kids are kids, and these mattresses are in children's bedroom. They're in guest rooms. I don't care how careful a person is. You don't know what's going to happen in your home. So there's exposure in every bedroom where these mattresses are located. When we look at the failure rate and the magnitude of failure, bad stuff happens. It's not intentional. It just happens, and that's what's so scary. I mean, it really is. The answer to the question as to what the consumer should do, I believe the consumer should have an awareness of the 1633 test. And I know that a lot of retailers don't want to talk about mattress flammability, but it's real. A way around this, and I've got to give Mattress Firm credit. We told Mattress Firm of this flammability issue. They took a very unexpected turn in that conversation. They said, well, wait a second, you have now kind of put legal liability on us. You've presented this test data to us that you presented to the CPSC. We therefore are legally liable. I'm not an attorney. My brain doesn't work that way. So they've taken the position they will no longer sell imported mattresses. That's a huge step. I mean, that's a big step. I mean, and I know they and most retailers in this country make sure that their vendors comply with 1633. They ask for 1633 certifications, but they don't on imported mattresses. And I think, I can't speak for Mattress Firm, but I assume their position is we can't trust the documentation that we're getting. So we've just said enough's enough. We're only going to sell U.S. produced mattresses. That's leadership to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, this is the way I look at this is passing these basic flammability tests is literally the only legal requirement, as far as I know, to selling a mattress in the United States. So how are these flammability standards typically enforced? Is it kind of on the honor system? Do you test yourself typically, or do you have to have a third-party certification? And how are they monitored to ensure compliance over time?
So what happens is the labs are certified, and a manufacturer, Leggett Platt, ECS, we have a certified lab. So
Okay.
we burn ourselves, And then we'll also send out to a third-party lab. In this case, we just wanted a kind of belt and suspender certification. Many small manufacturers who have small lot sizes will only use a third-party lab. They can't afford a burn lab. And the
Yeah, they don't have their
requirements,
own.
exactly. So then the requirement is anytime there's a specification change, you have to burn. And you burn 3 mattresses. There's three burns per SKU. So it's you don't want to change foam specifications.
And how is that enforced? Who's monitoring? Oh, you had a specification change. Where's your receipts from the 3 new burns? You know, who's doing that, or who should be doing that? And how does it differ with an imported mattress from a domestic one?
The CPSC should be should be administering it and should be regulating it. It sounds like I'm picking on them. They've got a lot to regulate, but they also regulate UL and a lot of other devices. So that's the look. I don't think anybody is watching the imports. You know, theoretically, customs should be asking that question, but in today's world, my goodness, customs take their hands full.
So it's kind of a loophole in the whole system, is that because there are no like certified burn labs, for example, in Asia?
I doubt it. I don't know that for a fact, but I doubt it. You know, in this country is full of attorneys, and you know, plaintiff attorneys establishing a class. Theoretically, if you can't certify to 1633, you have liability. It's a lot easier to hold a U.S. manufacturer liable than it is typically Asian manufacturer liable.
Well, I think it's really interesting that, to your point, what this study has done, and this podcast can hopefully help, it's eliminated plausible deniability for people who are selling these mattresses. I find it very interesting that Mattress Firm recognized that and made a change, and yet Amazon did not even respond to you. So Amazon still has not responded?
No. And Amazon initially kind of stood behind, well, we're not selling the product, third-party sellers are, and when we sell on our platform, they're U.S. produced, and we do demand 1633. Again, disclosure, I'm not an attorney, but I know for a fact there is U.S. case law that Amazon is liable for what's sold on their platform. So
I would think so.
You know,
I would think so as well.
That case has been settled. So Amazon does in fact have liability, but
regardless of you know, our lack of knowledge of the case law or what have you, I mean, their claim to be arm's length on this, doesn't it go down the tubes when one of their own house brands was one of the ones that the CPSC recalled, the Amazon Basics brand? I mean, that's clearly not sold by a third party. That's made and sold by them, or at least made to order.
And that particular recall was U.S. produced as well. So that they have some rigor that they need. That they need to have some accountability. But you know, and the other side of it is, again, not to bash Amazon, but even a third-party seller, it comes on an Amazon truck. The consumer relies on the Amazon name and the Amazon logo. You would think that there's some brand equity and consumer responsibility through that perception. When you buy something on Amazon, you don't necessarily know that it's coming to you from a third-party seller. And that's what that case law was all about.
Yeah, and you put a lot of faith in things like star ratings on the Amazon platform. Right. I mean, and of course, those star ratings bear no reflection to whether or not this mattress would pass flammability testing, whether that mattress has dangerous chemicals in it, whether it has any durability properties, whether in fact it meets any of the kind of stated claims that appear on the product profile page on Amazon. There's really no relevance, because generally speaking, the consumer is not capable of assessing the mattress for those things. and particularly not after a couple of weeks of ownership, which is when they write those reviews usually.
And Mike, generally what happens is when those products are sold on the Amazon platform, made by a U.S. Manufacturer, that U.S. Producer knows the liability rests with them, the producer. The last thing they're going to do is expose themselves to that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the checks and balances, the legal system. It just doesn't apply to the imported
there's
product.
just a big loophole in those checks and balances as it relates to the ones sold on Amazon.
Yeah, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and that it just hasn't reached the right people, because if not, that is so troubling, because this is not a minimal thing. This is life and death for consumers. So if they're not even responding, even after it reaches the appropriate levels, that is mind-boggling and very, very scary.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think it bears mentioning, this is the point I was going to raise earlier, is that this is the only thing that's legally required to sell a mattress. Obviously, there are a whole lot of other statements that a manufacturer makes on Amazon about the products that they're offering for sale there that are in no way legally monitored. So if this is one that has severe legal repercussions and is actually law, what faith can a consumer put in any of the other statements that are basically voluntary, or even just marketing beyond? I mean, Certipure is a good example of something that consumers put a lot of faith in and that we consider to be a really valuable. I'm glad we have that Certipure standard that we can that consumers can put some stock into. But that is ultimately a standard that I'm sure has very similar loopholes when it comes to mattresses that are being imported, because the enforcement of those standards becomes much more difficult when you're talking about international manufacturers. And there is a lot of kind of honor system and voluntary adherence to those types of things. So it's hard to imagine that consumers can put much faith in those types of statements like our foams are Certipure, when those same companies are not even doing the one thing that they're legally required to do.
Completely agree with you. And many of the other measures are purely subjective. What does firm, medium, and soft mean? What does durable mean? What
is pressure relieving or cooling? Or
absolutely. The only measure that the consumer can really deal with is the physical size, roughly, and the height. The consumer can measure 8 inches and 10 inches. I can't even tell you that a mattress that comes in that says that it's a pocketed coil is in fact a pocketed coil. I don't know that.
You would have to cut it open to know for sure, really.
And how does the consumer even know what that means? But
that's right. Even knowing what's in the mattress, even that simple of a statement, like, oh, there's 2 layers of this kind of foam, or there's, like you said, a pocketed coil spring unit, or there's edge support. Even those basic specifications, you're relying on the manufacturer's word. And if the manufacturer isn't even being sort of legally compliant when it comes to the one thing that they're required to do, how much is their word really worth in this instance? So I think that's a real concern that, to me, as a consumer, should go well beyond the flammability question or the flammability issue.
And I think, Mike, that's why retailers, I think ultimately will get themselves into the same position that Mattress Firm did, and just throw their hands up in the air and say, we'll control what we can control. And I think that anytime you buy an imported product and you sell an imported product, you have that exposure.
One of the things that we see that's sort of like, just stepping back more broadly with the Amazon shopping experience, but it's not unique to Amazon, it's true of other retailers as well, is that we're seeing this channel that maybe Amazon is the broadest and largest representation of, that is rising in unit sales dramatically, which is a channel that I characterize, like the common characteristics that I lumped it together with, is no showroom, no RSAs, and no expert guidance. So if you think about, like, that's Amazon, right? There's You can't try it. There's no RSAs there to kind of answer your questions. There's no expert guidance to kind of tell you the real difference between when this person or when this company says, cooling, it means this. When this other company says cooling, it means that. There's nothing of any of those sorts. So what that leaves you with is just kind of consumer ratings and essentially marketing claims and price. That's about it. And so it's inevitable that on Amazon and on all of the channels that share those three common characteristics, that it ends up being that consumers just default to the cheapest ones because they have no other basis. There's all the reasons why you would pay more for quality are blind to you. There's no one there to tell you, and you can't see it for yourself. So I guess that is very concerning for me, because I see that channel having grown dramatically over the last 10 years to the point where now I would estimate it's at least half of units going through that broad channel, which includes Amazon, Walmart, Costco, Wayfair, like all of these guys in aggregate, Sam's Club, Target, Home Depot. If you add all those up, that's a significant number of units. So I guess my question is, like, in that context, like, what are the biggest challenges in making sure that genuine improvements in product design or materials actually get recognized and valued, whether by consumers or the retailers, manufacturers, from any of those perspectives?
Yeah, I think that you have to have some basic credibility with the brand name or the seller. So once you to our previous conversation, you would hope that you can assume with Amazon, we've proven that you can't. And they're not the only seller of imported mattresses either. So be careful with that. But I think that you've got to look to credible sources. The large branded people, or even the small ones that differentiate themselves by quality or characteristics, or have been in business for a long period of time, that are U.S. produced. They're selling the industry's selling a blind product. That's the real problem. There are some certain table stakes that you should be able to rely on, flammability being the most important. But in terms of the durability or comparability, all of those things are more apparent in a brick and mortar retail environment, where there is an ability to compare and contrast. And then at least the consumer can differentiate what feel means. In many of those other methods of distribution, you can't even physically lay down on the product. So every interaction that the consumer can have with the product in advance of purchasing the product, I think, is to the consumer's benefit. And buying from it's a product that the consumer a purchase that they make roughly every 7 to 10 years. So they're not going to have connectivity with the brand generally, or even the seller, but they need to have as much innate credibility with whoever that entity is as they possibly can have.
That's a really good point, because we see this with these recalls, for example. The brands that Amazon recalls, they're not brands that anyone's ever heard of. There's almost no brand equity in any of these brands sold on Amazon. At least the ones doing significant volume on Amazon, there's no brand equity in these. So if they get a bunch of bad press because they fail a flammability test and have to do a recall, no problem. Just crumple that brand up, throw it in the garbage can, and create another no-name generic sounding brand, and we'll be back on Amazon in no time with this new product and the new brand. So the fact that they have no brand equity, there's no consequence to bad behavior.
Make things worse, I'm sorry to interrupt you, to make things worse, when we look at the labeling on these mattresses that fail, many of them come from the same factory.
Right.
So to your very point, there is no accountability, because if one brand gets recalled, well, no problem. I'm not going to change my methods. I'm just going to put another label on it. and then
Exactly.
I'll do whatever I need to do to get higher star ratings on Amazon, and then I'll create another flammability monster. And
Yeah.
that's why I think sort through it. I would have never come to this position on my own. I'm glad Mattress Firm did it. That's kind of the only way that you can fight back and say, I'm just not going to participate. I'm not going to expose the consumer to an imported product. I mean, at the end of that's about all you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I guess my concern is that um, so yes, flammability for sure, I think is an issue that is particularly acute with the imported products. But I think that even if we took away all of the imported products and presumed that every mattress on a platform like Amazon, again, not to pick exclusively on Amazon, but any of these any players in this channel that I'm describing that have no salespeople, no showroom, and no expert guidance, if you assume all those products, let's say, start passing flammability testing and they're all made even domestically, those channels are still, I think, not providing a way for quality to be ascertained. They're not, because of the fact that they lack these three components that I keep mentioning. Consumers shopping on those platforms have no compelling way to discern which products actually are better for them. And so that's a broader concern I have. And I guess you have such fantastic perspective on this. You've been in the industry for a long time, and you've seen it obviously from you really have the visibility across the entire value chain. And at this particular inflection point, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what does quality mean? Does quality still matter in this industry? And how is this changing over time, or has it at all changed over time?
Yeah, I think quality still matters, because I think quality still matters to the consumer, and I think comparability matters to the consumer. I think that's why that there were those that took the position that everything is going to go to an online purchase. I don't believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's incumbent on the brick and mortar retailers to improve the shopping experience. That the brick and mortar shopping experience deteriorated to the point that there was a flight by the consumer that said, I just can't take it anymore, so I'm going to go to the easy approach and go online. And oh, by the way, if I don't like it, I'll just get my money back. Well, that ship's
Mm-hmm.
kind of sailed. It's not easy to do.
Yep.
So I think that there is a respect for quality. There should be accountability. There are ways to differentiate products through foam qualities, through certifications. CertiPure is a really good example. There's all natural products that resonate with certain consumers that are important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of those elements of sleep are intertwined in a way that, once articulated honestly to a consumer, that they will self-value them. If we look at innerspring product, the consumer knows the difference between Beautyrest Black and a promotional Beautyrest, or a difference between an entry-level Posturepedic or Stearns and Foster. And
Mm-hmm.
it's quality of material, it's craftsmanship, it's feel differential, this is kind of self-flattery, it's spring component differentials. All of those things matter.
Sure.
It's numbers of coils, it's durability of coils, it's specialty foams, it's anti-moisture, it's wicking of moisture, it's temperature control. I think the consumer understands all of those things if they're articulated to the consumer, and they will pay for them. It's pretty easy to demonstrate the difference between a 1.2 and a 1.8 ILD foam. I mean, that's you can feel and you can touch that in a brick and mortar showroom. The surface temperature of a cooling product, the consumer gets that. if properly displayed. And I think that retailers and manufacturers are particularly good at that. I think the consumer will value that and continue to value it. It just has to be illustrated to them. It is the ultimate kind of blind product. We used to use the word, beige or white rectangles. They're not beige or white anymore, but they're still kind of blind.
Yeah.
And
you don't know what's in them, and you don't know how it will do for you until you get it home and sleep on it for a while.
And it's the ultimate intimate product. That's why this whole concern about chemical content. When your head is on the surface with a very thin sheet or hopefully a mattress pad in between it, and you're there for hopefully 8 hours a night.
Yep.
7 nights a week. There's very few products that the consumer interacts with as intimately and has so little understanding of. And I think the industry's done a relatively good job of drawing the correlation coefficients between quality of sleep and quality of life. The connection is, where does a quality mattress fit into that hierarchy of human needs? And there needs to be more work.
And what differentiates a mattress that makes it a quality mattress?
Exactly. And I will tell you that the probability of that consumer being satisfied with an imported, primarily Asian imported, because there's a lot of high-end, real high-quality product that comes from Europe in a finished form that meets very rigid European flammability standards that are more rigid in many cases than the 1633 test. So this is an Asia issue, primarily, not exclusively, but primarily. It just comes to consumer education. And I think there are some retailers and manufacturers that are doing a particularly good job. Not enough of them.
Do you see, I mean, one of the challenges that I've seen in my time in this industry, which doesn't nearly go back as long as yours, but I've seen that compared to other industries that I've worked in, I feel that manufacturers who do put higher quality into their products don't generally get as much credit for it in this industry as they do in other categories. And part of that is because there's not a really clear way to measure it. You put higher density foam in, and that costs a certain amount more, and it has a certain amount more benefits. But how do consumers commensurately appreciate that density? I'd argue no, because they don't understand the product as well, and there's not clear. It's not like not sure if you're a golfer, but you put a different shaft on your driver, the consumer sees that ball went 20 yards further. It's like, okay, I've got evidence, and I watched my friend add 20 yards to his drive before I even bought this thing. There's concrete, demonstrable evidence of quality that just this category just fundamentally, by its very nature, sort of lacks. And one of the concerns I have that I'm seeing in the market is that the rise of this channel, that has no showrooms and has no expert guidance of any kind, is creating more claims parity in a sense. And claims parity, when anyone can say that their product is cooling or pressure relieving or supportive, kind of with impunity, it makes it even harder for the companies who want to put good things into their product to really get credit for it. And you yourself, obviously, Leggett makes some of the best components on the market. I'm just curious if you see what can be done to make sure that manufacturers still feel that it's worthwhile to invest in quality components in the future as much as it has been in the past, or maybe even more so, hopefully even more so than it has been in the past.
Yeah, it's a great question, Mike. I think the category got commoditized after the pandemic, when there was just, and we're guilty of it, that there just wasn't enough available product, and the consumer kind of rushed to the bottom to fill a need. And I think as as time passes, you're starting to see new product launches. We went to Las Vegas Furniture Market for 4 years when there really wasn't any new product launch, because everybody was just trying to keep up. And then now, in the last year or so, you've started to see new launches. I think you'll see more of that as the newly launched products are starting to gain share and gather momentum and are being differentiated. And people are leaning into RSA educational methods and processes. That the consumer is reliant on that. And as long as that communication is legitimate, which hasn't always been the case, that I think there's an opportunity, and success breeds success. And I think we're starting to see the early drivers of that. It feels like the industry starting to recover a little bit right now. We're starting to see some green shoots. I use the expression, I hope it's bamboo and not weeds, but we're starting to see some green shoots. And where we're seeing those green shoots are in the areas of newly introduced products that have true differentiation. And so I'm optimistic.
Yeah. Well, that makes one of us.
Hey, you got to keep swinging.
Yeah. I shouldn't say that. I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic as well. But I continue to have grave concerns about some of these threats, and I hope that the industry will take them seriously. And if they do, then I remain optimistic. But these are serious issues that we're facing, and I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing to help bring to light some of these differences. It makes a huge difference, I think, to know this, to have the data. We want to do what we can to relay this message to consumers who need to hear it, as well as to retailers and manufacturers who may not be aware of it as well. So thank you for not only doing the work that you did, but coming here and being on our show today to share this work with the industry and with consumers.
Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity. The industry's important to us, obviously. It's kind of our lifeblood, having been in it since 1883. And at the end of the day, nobody is served if the consumer is not served, and the consumer is not safe, and they can't trust the product. And giving us the opportunity to voice that, not only on behalf of the company, but more importantly to us on behalf of the industry. We need the industry to be healthy, and you've given us the opportunity to express these concerns, and hopefully the CPSC will hear this call to action and do something. It's going to take consumer complaint and consumer awareness. I use the analogy, not many consumers would use an electric blanket that didn't have UL certification, or use a hairdryer or a sink that wasn't UL certified. We need to get 1633 and the flammability awareness and regulation to that level, because it is truly a life or death issue. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about it.
Oh, my pleasure. Karl, is there anything before we go? Is there anything that we didn't ask that you wish we had?
No, I think you've done a great job of covering it all, and I share your concerns. We've just got to find, as an industry, we've got to find solutions for all the great questions that you guys ask. We owe it to the consumer.
This conversation fits really well into this overall work that we're doing right now, in terms of fighting back against what we see as a grave threat to the industry, the threat of commoditization that is kind of facing the all of us, really. And so we've actually been, funny enough, you may not even be aware, but you would have no way of being aware, because we haven't even published any of these yet. But we've been doing a series of podcasts as part of the work we've been doing to kind of raise awareness about quality when it comes to mattresses. We've been doing a series of podcasts with people who make mattresses, who design mattresses, who've been doing it a long time, to ask them, the people who know best, about quality and all the little things that go into quality in a mattress. And So this fits perfectly into that series that we have yet to even start publishing. We've been recording them, but yet to start publishing them. And so, yeah, I think the work that you are doing is very much part and parcel with what we think is incredibly important for the industry right now, which is to really educate the consumer on the fact that quality is a real thing when it comes to mattresses.
Absolutely.
They are not. This is right now. They're getting faced with this impression that you can get the same features and benefits in a $3,000 mattress for a $300 mattress, and they're coming away with the impression that there is no distinction between two mattresses, and that is the very definition of a commodity, as you know, when price is the only thing that differentiates them, and that is that couldn't be further from the truth as it relates to the product as we know it. And so we want to make sure that we're raising the level of discourse on that. And well, we appreciate you being on the show, and thank you for your time. And until next time, we hope everybody out there sleeps well.
Thank you, guys.